Hey guys, tonight we dive into something a little different. Picture this. You're standing in a crooked stone shed behind your house, the walls slick with soot, the air thick with smoke and molten breath. You're alone as usual. The furnace groans like it's got something alive inside. Outside, it's just past midnight, because that's when the iron likes to melt best. No one's watching. No one ever does anymore. But tonight, something feels different. You lift the crucible with shaking hands, your eyes stinging from the heat. The metal inside swirls, dark as spilled ink. You hope it'll shift, finally, like it never has. Maybe just once, it'll ripple into that unmistakable sun-yellow gleam. Gold, real, impossible, breath-stealing gold. But it doesn't. It never does. You've been doing this every night for years. You've given up almost everything. Meals, neighbours, your last few teeth, long story, involves mercury, for a dream older than the pyramids. And still, the alchemy remains stubborn. You probably won't survive this. But hey, at least you'll go out shiny. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I love knowing where you're listening from, so drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You strike the flint, and the furnace yawns open. The process is familiar now. You know every crack in the brick floor, every hiss from the coals. Iron filings, charcoal, a whisper of copper. The ingredients fall into place like a ritual you barely have to think about anymore. You pour them in with a precision that would make your old chemistry teacher cry. Not that he ever believed in you. He called alchemy pre-scientific nonsense. You called him chronically unimaginative, fair trade. You stir the mass slowly with a rod that's gone soft from years of heat. The glow blooms, orange then white, and you feel your heart lift despite yourself. The alchemists of old believed the metal had to suffer, melt, burn, purify, before it could transcend. You believe it too. Pain before perfection. You tell yourself that often. The air thickens. A single bead of sweat rolls down your temple, not because it's hot. Well, okay, it's 300 degrees in here, but because this could be it. You lean forward, blinking hard through the shimmering air, still iron, still failure. You exhale sharply and slump to the floor. Your back hits the wall with a hollow thud. That sound again, the one you hate, the sound of almost. You remember what a certain medieval Persian alchemist wrote. The metal is not the secret. The fire is not the secret. You are the secret. Which sounds poetic until you've been squinting into a furnace for 6 years, wondering if the secret is just early onset cataracts. The shed creaks above you, and a flake of charred ceiling drifts lazily downward. You watch it fall, counting its turns in the air. This is how your nights go. Waiting, watching, wishing. You've tried modern methods, chemical equations, metallurgy courses, even some light YouTube rabbit holes, but none of it scratches the itch. You're after transformation, not duplication. Real gold, not plated nonsense. And not because you want to be rich. Okay, maybe a little rich. But mostly you want to prove it's possible. Historians still argue whether true alchemists ever succeeded. The records are murky, half poetry and half hallucination. But something keeps them coming back, doesn't it? Something keeps you coming back too. You glance at the shelf beside the furnace. There sits your jar of quicksilver, mercury, looking for all the world like liquid moonlight. Dangerous stuff. Most of your fingernails have weird ridges now. One tooth wiggles when it shouldn't, but it dances in the light in a way that iron never does. You've always felt it knows something. Speaking of dangerous materials, you remember when you once tried to synthesize gold using lead and sulfur alone. The bang echoed all the way to the town square. You lost half an eyebrow and gained a reputation. Kids whispered that you were building bombs. Adults whispered worse, but you stayed. Because something in your bones tells you the old ones were right. Not in their equations necessarily, but in their obsession. The fire dies slowly, and you don't feed it. You've already wasted enough coal tonight. You set your tools down with the solemnity of a surgeon leaving an unsuccessful operation. No transformation. Not tonight, but the feeling doesn't sting as sharply as it used to. You're beyond hope now, into something deeper. Ritual, discipline, faith maybe. You blow out the lantern and sit in the dark for a while. Just you and the smell of burnt metal. Somewhere outside, a cat screeches. You don't flinch. Before you leave, you check the crucible one last time, just in case. The metal has cooled into a dull grey lump, ridged and cracked like dried lava. You pick it up, still warm, and hold it close to your face. Is that a shimmer? No, just the reflection of the moon through the broken window. You sigh. Maybe tomorrow, you whisper, but something else whispers back. It's so soft, so slippery, you can't tell if it came from the metal, the shadows, or your own exhausted mind. But it sounded like your name, and not how you say it, how you've never told anyone to say it. You freeze. Then you laugh too loudly, too nervously, and shake your head. Going mad, you mutter. Finally happening. But as you walk out into the night air, one thought loops in your head louder than any voice. What if it wasn't madness? The town is quiet. It always is at this hour. But tonight, the quiet feels deeper, thicker, like the silence is paying attention. You glance at the neighbours' shutters, still closed, like they've been for months. They used to watch you, you know. When this all began, when you were still asking the butcher for spare bones to grind and the pharmacist for sulphur for the roses. You remember the whispers? Back then, they'd watch from behind curtains. Someone would cough dramatically when you passed, as if to scare off your bad air. Kids would throw sticks at your shed. Classic village charm. But now, no one looks. No one comments. You've become invisible, which is somehow worse than being ridiculous. Even Marta, the baker's daughter who once brought you fresh bread for your health, avoids your eyes now. You keep the last piece she gave you, fossilized, on your shelf. Because sentimentality is a side effect of madness, and you might as well commit. You cross your little yard, the grass long and tangled. The gate creaks like it's greeting you in Morse code. You pause at the door and glance back. The shed sits there, just a bump in the dark, but something about it feels aware. You decide not to dwell. You push open the door. Inside, your house is cluttered, but neat in its own way. Books on every surface, notes pinned to lampshades, little jars of weird powders tucked behind canned soup. You live alone, of course you do, but the house carries the echo of someone who talks to themselves often, and loudly. You make tea, wormwood, mint, and whatever that leaf is you found in a book on druidic medicine. The one you definitely didn't check for side effects. It tastes like regret with hints of soil. Perfect. You sit down by the window facing the town and sip carefully. The moonlight hits your cheek just so, and for a moment you think, again, you hear it. That whisper, but it's fainter now, or maybe it was the kettle settling. The thing is, you're not entirely sure when things shifted from science to something else. You remember starting with books, Paracelsus, Jabir ibn Hayyan, even Newton's messier stuff. Did you know Sir Isaac Newton wrote more on alchemy than on physics? Historians still argue whether he truly believed in transmutation, or if it was metaphorical. You like to think it was real, that gravity was just his side hustle. You also tried all the classic recipes. Sol Niger, the green lion, the peacock's tail. The stages of transformation were always more poetic than practical, but they meant something to you. Still do. You once painted the colour phases on your bedroom wall. Black, white, yellow, red. Your landlord made you paint over it. But the whispers, those are new. You didn't start this journey to hear things. You started it because something in your blood said, gold is possible, just not the way they told you. Outside, a dog barks once. Far off, a bell chimes the hour. 2 o'clock. You don't sleep much anymore. But tonight you feel jittery, like the shadows are holding their breath. You close your eyes. When you were a child, you had a dream about gold. Not just any dream, the kind that sticks right in the marrow. You were standing in a desert barefoot, holding a bowl of sunlight. That's the only way to describe it. The heat didn't burn, the light didn't blind. But you knew, even as a kid, that what you held was impossible. Something holy. You told your teacher. She called your parents. There were meetings. You were tested for early signs of giftedness, which you found out later is code for, is this one going to cause trouble? The results were inconclusive. You still remember the smell of that dream. Sand, yes, but also metal. Warm and oddly sweet, like copper and honey mixed. And here's the wild part. Sometimes, late at night, when the coals are just right, You swear you catch that scent again, just for a second. You've never told anyone that. The tea cools. You swirl the last sip around your mouth, wondering if that leaf you added was supposed to cause hallucinations. Or maybe it's just confirmation bias. A popular theory among skeptics. They say people see what they want to see, hear what they hope to hear. But what if confirmation bias goes both ways? What if the people insisting you're mad are just afraid you might be right? You chuckle. Yeah, you whisper to no one. That's what a madman would say. You stand up and stretch. Your spine makes 3 different sounds. That can't be healthy. You glance toward the window again. The moon's moved on. The shed now sits in shadow, but there's a glow at the bottom edge of the door, just a faint line. You didn't leave the fire burning. You're sure of that. You stare at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, you put on your boots and coat again. The night isn't done with you yet. You step outside. The air has changed. It feels denser, like it's waiting for something to happen. You make your way to the shed, boots crunching on dry grass. You grip the door handle and pause. And that's when you hear it again, clearer this time. Closer. A whisper, unmistakably from inside the shed. It says your name, and then it says, "Let's begin again." You don't open the door right away. You just stand there, one hand on the cold metal latch, the other clenched tight at your side. Your breath is louder than usual. Not fast, not panicked, just too solid in the silence. The whisper still echoes inside your skull, curling at the edges like smoke from burnt parchment. "Let's begin again." That's what it said, in a voice like polished brass and ash. Not yours, not anyone's. You push the door open. The shed greets you with its usual heat, but there's something else now. The air inside isn't just hot, it pulses, as if the furnace is breathing. The low orange glow flares gently, then dims, in a rhythm that doesn't match the cooling coals. No draft, no breeze. Just heat that moves like thought. You step inside and shut the door behind you. The crucible sits in the furnace where you left it, only now it's warm again. Freshly warm, like it never cooled. But you didn't relight the coals, and there's no new fuel, just embers where there should be ash. You kneel beside it cautiously, and there it is again. The whisper. This time, it doesn't say your name. It says, "Ask." You freeze. Not in fear exactly, more like awe, the kind that tightens your stomach and makes your skin forget it's supposed to breathe. Because the voice didn't come from behind you, or above, it came from inside the crucible. You lean in slightly. "Ask what?" you whisper. Pause. Then, you already know. You do. Of course you do. You glance at your workbench. On it sits a journal, tattered, leather-bound, half-scorched at the edges. Your first one. The one where you scribbled the phrase that started all this. "What must iron surrender to become gold?" You whisper comes again. Ask it aloud. You do. Your voice is barely above a murmur. "What must iron surrender to become gold?" The furnace responds. Not with words, with sound. A low hum begins to rise from the crucible, like a plucked cello string, deep and steady. The coals brighten. The heat intensifies. But you don't pull back. Instead, you stare into the molten surface. And there, right there it moves. Not bubbling, not boiling, shifting. Like it's folding inward on itself. The glow twists into spirals, curling like galaxies being born. You blink and see something impossible. A flash of colour that doesn't exist on the spectrum, somewhere between crimson and memory. Then it's gone. You stumble back, landing hard on the stone floor. The crucible hum fades. The light dims. And now it looks like ordinary metal again. But it isn't. You know it. You can feel it in your teeth. And your fingers. You glance down at your right hand. The tips of your fingers are tingling. Like you've touched static electricity. You bring them close to your face and gasp. They're glowing. Faint, but unmistakable. Tiny filaments of golden light tracing along the ridges of your skin, pulsing slowly with your heartbeat. Then, just as suddenly they fade, you sit there in stunned silence. You're not hallucinating. You've been poisoned before, thanks Mercury, and you know the signs. This is different. It's not a fever dream or a neurological misfire. It's an answer, of sorts. You think back to something you read once, an obscure text attributed to an unnamed monk in 13th century Germany. It claimed that true gold is not made, it is remembered. The metal forgets itself, and you must teach it again. Historians still argue whether the manuscript was authentic or a medieval prank. Alchemy was full of those. People would forge entire scrolls just to mess with rival scholars. But now you're not so sure it was fiction. You rise slowly and look around the shed. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has. You grab your notebook and scribble down what just happened. Every word of the whisper, the sensation in your fingers, the image you saw in the crucible. You underline colour outside spectrum twice and draw a spiral next to it, even though you're not much of an artist. Your pen runs dry. You chuckle. Of course it does. You swap it for a pencil and keep going. Then you notice something new. On the wall, near the corner where the soot never quite sticks, there's a mark. A symbol. You definitely didn't put it there. It's drawn in thin lines of what looks like soot or ash. A looping shape, not quite circular, not quite linear. Like a serpent that's forgotten how to bite its own tail. It pulses faintly when you look at it head-on, like it's breathing under your gaze. You approach it and raise your hand. Hover your fingers just above it, and it's cold. Ice cold. In a room that still swelters, you whisper to it. Because that seems to be how things work now. Did you do this? The crucible stays silent. But the mark responds. It flickers. Once, like a dying flame. Then the wall is just a wall again. But your palm now holds a smudge. The same symbol. As if it was given to you. Imprinted. You don't know whether to feel chosen or marked. You look at your furnace and shake your head. What do you want from me? The whisper, now almost inaudible, comes again. Keep asking. You wipe your face with your sleeve and laugh. It's the kind of laugh you'd give if someone handed you a Rubik's Cube and said it's also a bomb. This is no longer chemistry, it's communion. You step outside again. The dawn is barely starting. The sky bleeds into a pale orange bruise. Birds are waking up. Somewhere in the town, someone is lighting a stove, unaware that reality has shifted a few inches sideways. You think about going to bed, but sleep feels irrelevant now. You're not just chasing gold anymore. Gold might be chasing you back. You don't go inside. You sit on the stone step just outside the shed, elbows on your knees, staring out at the sleeping town as the sky drips slowly from navy to bruised lilac. There's a rooster that always starts too early. It crows now, oblivious to the fact that you've just had a polite chat with molten metal. Your fingers still hum. Not literally. But they remember. The way a burn doesn't hurt yet, but the skin already knows it will. You rub your thumb against the pads of your fingers, as if to scrub away the sensation. It doesn't leave. You glance at the mark on your palm again. The soot's mostly rubbed off, but a faint stain remains. You tell yourself you should be scared. You want to be scared. But mostly you feel alive. For the first time in years, the iron is whispering back. It takes you a few hours to return to the crucible. Not because you're avoiding it, but because you want to get it right. You bathe, wipe down with a cloth and rainwater. You sharpen your stirring rod. You even sweep the shed's floor. The spiders seem confused. Then you gather your ingredients. Not just the ones from your usual recipe. You go to the top shelf, the dusty shelf, the one where you keep the vials that have warning labels scrawled in your handwriting. Too volatile, try again later, made me smell purple. You gather them all. Ingredients rattle as you pour them into the mixing tray. Iron shavings, yes, but finer now. Copper filings. Saltpeter. A fleck of real silver. And, just because you're feeling a little bold, a drop of your own blood. Hey, if the metal wants a piece of you, it can have the parts you're not using. The crucible flares to life with a hunger you've never seen before. The fire isn't just hot, it's active. It curls around the bowl like it wants to taste it. You catch yourself muttering incantations under your breath. Not real spells, just borrowed Latin from old texts. You don't even know what half of them mean. The stirring begins. You move slowly, in spirals, clockwise then counter. The metal swirls, the colours shifting. Orange, white, and then, just for a breath, deep red. The philosopher's stage. Rubedo. The ancient alchemists believed it was the final stage of perfection. Of course, they also thought crocodile dung made good sunscreen. But still, You pull the rod free and step back. The mixture doesn't cool this time. It continues swirling on its own, just spinning, like it's thinking. And then, you swear this is true, the crucible whispers. This time, it's not your name, not a command, just something like a song. Not melody, exactly. More like tone, a vibration in your bones, like hearing music from a room you can't find. You lean forward, caught in it. That's when you remember the story of Birincuccio, Vannocchio Birincuccio, the 16th century metallurgist who wrote De la Pyrotechnia, one of the first to really draw the line between alchemy and actual metallurgy. He mocked the idea of transmutation, said it was a fool's game. But, fun fact, historians still argue whether he was secretly trying it himself. Some say his personal notes mention an elemental voice in the crucible. You always thought that meant gas emissions. Now, you're not so sure. You keep watching the molten swirl. Then, very suddenly, it stops. Solid. Still. Cooled instantly. You stare at the crucible, blinking through the residual heat haze. There, at the surface of the metal, is an imprint. Shallow but clean. The same symbol that was on your wall, now pressed into the surface like a maker's mark, or a seal. You don't touch it yet. Instead, you reach for a different notebook. The red one. The one with the more esoteric ideas. The stuff even you were embarrassed to write down sober. You flip to a page labelled False Golds. It's a catalogue you made, mostly to comfort yourself. All the substances that looked like gold, but weren't. Pyrite, obviously. Chalcopyrite. Brass. Biotite. One time, a melted wrapper from a chocolate coin, don't ask. But they all shared one thing. They shimmered wrong. Real gold has a glow you don't forget. You've only held it twice. Once from a museum heist exhibit. Don't worry, you didn't steal it. And once when a trader passed through town and let you weigh a coin. You paid him in books. Worth it. You take a chisel and tap the new ingot free. It's heavier than iron. Not by much, but enough that your wrist notices. The surface is smooth, like glass. And beneath the stamped symbol, it gleams. Not gold, exactly, but golden. As if it wants to be gold, or remembers being gold once. You bring it to the desk, lay it out under the lamplight. You scratch at it with copper, no mark. With steel, a faint groove, but only just. You lick your finger, rub the surface. No flake, no residue. You check your breath, still holding. Then you whisper, "Are you gold?" No answer, but your palm tingles again. That same warmth, that same quiet thrum, like the metal is waiting for something more. That's when you remember the story of the old man with the golden tooth, your grandfather's friend who claimed it wasn't dental work, it was a gift. From a monk, who told him never to lie while wearing it. He took it out after 3 days. You thought it was a joke. Now, you wonder if the tooth was a test. You pocket the new metal. Tomorrow, you'll bring it to the pawn shop. See if it passes their tests. They'll laugh, maybe. Maybe not. But you need to know if it's real, if you are real, because if it is gold, then the rules have changed. And if it isn't, then something more interesting is happening. You don't sleep that night. You just pace the floor, metal in your pocket, fingertips brushing the surface every few steps, as if it might dissolve like candy floss. It doesn't. It just sits there, warm, patient, impossibly quiet. At dawn, you do something you haven't done in years. You open the front door with the intention of walking into town like a normal person. Sort of. Your coat smells like smoke and something older. Your boots still carry bits of ash. But you tell yourself the villagers won't notice. Or they'll pretend not to. They're good at that. You take the back streets. The sun peeks over the low hills, catching on wet slate roofs and lighting up the bakery's windows. You smell warm bread, and for a moment it almost pulls you back to a life that once involved groceries and conversations about the weather. But you're not here for nostalgia. You duck into the pawn shop at the edge of the square. The bell above the door jingles, a sound you've always found deeply suspicious. Nothing that cheery ever leads to good news. Behind the counter, as usual, is Elias. Mid-60s, thick glasses, beard like tangled wool. He doesn't look up right away, just gestures absently toward the shelves, assuming you're here to window shop for rusted daggers and forgotten tea sets. You clear your throat. He looks up and freezes when he sees it's you. You don't take it personally. Most people freeze when they see you. You have what some would call an aura. You prefer a reputation. Back again. Elias mutters. You nod. Got something for you to test. He sighs but gestures for you to come around. You pull the metal lump from your pocket and place it gently on the counter. Elias doesn't even look at it at first. He just peers at you like you've brought a hex wrapped in tinfoil. Then, reluctantly, he examines it. He picks it up, weighs it in one hand, taps it with a fingernail. Then he frowns. It's not lead, he says. Not copper either. Try the acid, you murmur. He hesitates, either because he's curious or because he doesn't want to waste his test drop, but he does it. He opens the drawer, pulls out the bottle, dips a pin into it, and carefully places a drop onto the surface. It sizzles, but not like it should. Elias leans closer. The acid leaves no green trail, no black scorch. Just a slight hiss, and then nothing. The drop dries and vanishes like it was never there. He doesn't say anything, just frowns harder. You press gently. So, he scratches his beard. Not brass, not pyrite, too heavy for aluminum, too smooth for tin. Might be a new alloy. Is it gold, you ask softly. Elias pauses. Then, it's not gold. You blink. That's not a thing. Well, it is now. He picks up the chunk again and holds it closer to the light. If I were a betting man, I'd say someone made this, but I've never seen anything quite like it. You melt this down, you nod. With what? You don't answer. He narrows his eyes. You didn't try that mercury trick again, did you? I told you. No mercury, you interrupt. That's not technically true. There's always a little mercury, but this time the metal wasn't reacting to mercury, it was reacting to you. Elias sets the ingot down and leans forward. You want me to buy it? No, I want you to forget it. He stares. I mean it, you say. Forget this. Pretend I brought in a clock or a mug. Or nothing, he says dryly. Exactly. He squints at you. Then, slowly, he nods. Fine, but I want first rights if you ever make a crown. You grin. Deal. You leave the shop quickly, tucking the metal away. Not because Elias is a threat, but because you suddenly feel eyes. Real ones. Not paranoia, observation. You glance around the street. The square is mostly empty, but a woman stands by the fountain, staring at you with a look you can't quite place. Recognition. Curiosity. She turns away before you can be sure. You head home. Back in the shed, everything feels different. The air is dense, heavy with expectation. You light the furnace again, but this time it lights before the flame touches it. The coals catch on a breath. You step back, eyebrows lifting. Right, you mutter. We're skipping formalities now. You reach for your notebooks, flipping through the pages until you find an entry dated 3 years ago. First contact hypothesis. Metal responds to emotion. Back then, it was a joke. A note scribbled after a particularly frustrating session where your rage cracked the crucible. But now you wonder. You hold your hand over the fire. Not too close, just close enough to feel it. You whisper, do you want something? Nothing. You try again. Is this a trade? Still nothing. Then without thinking you say, I would give anything to understand. The flames shift. And your mind is suddenly flooded. Memories. But not yours. You see a flash of a stone temple, sand-covered and vast. Gold veins running through the altar, hooded figures chanting in a language you don't recognize but somehow understand. You blink, and the vision's gone. You're on your knees. Breathing hard, you grab the nearest notebook and start writing. Half of it's gibberish. Symbols you've never seen, but you can't stop. Your hand moves on its own. Your fingertips tingle again. When it ends, you sit back and stare at the page. There's a line written clean in your own handwriting at the top. The metal remembers what you've forgotten. Your head spins. You think about the old texts again, especially one that fascinated you in school. The 9th century Arabic treatise, attributed to Jabir al-Hayyan, mentions the fire that knows, a metaphor, most scholars insist. But now, historians still argue whether he meant literal intelligence in the metal. You're starting to think he did. You set down the pen and glance at the crucible. All right, you whisper. Let's talk memory. A crucible hums in response. And for the first time, you realize you're not just melting metal anymore, you're unlocking it. You're not sure how long you sit there after the crucible hums. The sound wasn't loud, it barely tickled your ears, but it left something in your chest vibrating, like a tuning fork that struck the bones instead of the air. You try to focus, but your head's full of static, and then you hear it. Not a sound. A word, spoken just once. Clear, close, and calm. Again, you drop your pen. It rolls off the table and lands point first in a pile of sulfur dust. You don't even blink. You just stare at the crucible. You're beyond startled now. This isn't your brain playing tricks. You know what your brain sounds like. It's mostly to-do lists and regret. This voice is other. Smooth. Metallic. Almost kind. It said again. As in, do it again. You hesitate. Then reload the crucible. This time your hands move automatically. You choose the ingredients without thinking. Your body knows what the mixture needs better than you do. Salt, vinegar, iron, a sliver of tin, a splash of alcohol. Something from the blue vial you haven't opened in 2 years. You strike the match. The flame licks the mix, and the reaction is instant. The furnace doesn't roar, it sings. A low, resonant hum that makes the window panes buzz faintly in their frames. Your ears pop. Your vision warps for a second, as if the heat is bending reality just slightly to the left. You stir once, twice. You spell. Crucible speaks again. It's not words this time. It's emotion. You feel a sudden rush, grief, longing, awe, like someone else's life has briefly plugged into yours. You gasp, stumbling back. Your eyes water, but not from smoke. It's like remembering a funeral you never attended, a lover you never met. The metal isn't just awake. It remembers. You sit down hard on the stool, trying to steady your breath. What are you? You whisper. No response. But your wall, the same soot-streaked one from before, flickers. That strange symbol from nights ago, the not quite Ouroboros, pulses faintly again. And now there's another beside it, more jagged. Like a fracture, you stand up slowly, step toward it. Your fingers hover near the new symbol, cold again, but this time when you touch it, your mind jerks sideways, like being shoved through a doorway you didn't know existed. Flash. You're standing in a forest of iron trees. Each one weeps rust as wind pushes through. The sky is grey with copper clouds. A sun glows behind the horizon, but it's not a sun. It's a coin. A single, floating, spinning gold coin the size of a tower. You blink, and you're back in the shed. You stagger, knees nearly buckling. Your palms are sweating, heart hammering. What was that? You've never taken hallucinogens. Well, except that one time with the old mushroom tea, but that mostly resulted in vomiting and intense regret. This isn't like that. This is instructional. You reach for your journal again, flipping back through the pages to find a half-forgotten theory you scribbled in the margins. Alchemy as dialogue, not transformation. At the time it sounded philosophical. Now it sounds literal. The metal is talking. And you're finally starting to understand the language. You decide to test it. You write a question directly onto the bench with charcoal. What do you want me to see? Then you slide the crucible beside the words. A pause. Then the crucible shifts. Not physically, just perceptually. Your eyes slide away from it, as if your brain is being told not yet. But the fire flickers. The smoke trails upward and forms, for just a breath, the shape of an eye. You stare at it. And the whisper comes again. Below. That's all it says. You pause. Glance at your feet. The shed's stone floor is old. You've cleaned it dozens of times. But now that you're actually looking, something's off. The third flagstone from the furnace, cracked in a neat square. You grab a chisel and pry gently. It lifts. Beneath it, dirt. And beneath the dirt, something hard. You dig. Hands filthy, fingernails aching. After 5 frantic minutes, you uncover a box. Iron-bound, locked, and surprisingly intact. The kind of thing someone buries not to forget, but to protect. You lift it out, chest tight. It's not big, maybe the size of a thick book, but it feels dense, heavy in a way that's more than mass. You set it on the bench and stare. There's no keyhole, no latch, just 3 grooves across the top. You reach out, and your fingertips burn, not from heat, from memory. 3 grooves, 3 lines, like the ones in your journal. You've drawn this before. You flip through the pages, and there it is. A doodle you made absent-mindedly last winter while listening to a podcast about Viking metallurgy. A handful might descry. You trace them. 1, 2, 3. The box clicks open. Inside, parchment. Sealed in wax. A disc of metal the size of your palm, and a stone, dark green, almost black, with veins of gold running through it like a river system. You don't touch any of it. Not yet. You lean over the open box, and the whisper comes again. Softer than ever. You are close. You sit back, hands trembling. You remember reading about the green lion in old alchemical texts, a metaphor for a mysterious solvent said to eat the sun. Many believe it referred to aqua regia, the acid mixture that dissolves gold, but fringe theorists suggest it was something else entirely: a stone, a seed, a memory. Historians still argue whether the green lion was allegory, chemical process, or prophecy. But now, staring at the stone inside this ancient box, you feel a certainty you can't explain. You've just found it, or something like it. You close the box gently and look at the crucible. I think, you say, voice barely above a whisper. We need to have a longer conversation. The crucible hums back, and this time you hum too. The next morning, if you can even call it that, you don't open your eyes to sunlight. You open them to glow. Your room hums gently, the light source uncertain. There's no fire burning, no lamp lit, but everything is bathed in a faint amber warmth, as if dawn itself has decided to nest in your ceiling beams. The box sits on your bedside table. You don't remember bringing it in from the shed. You sit up slowly, glancing at your palms. No new marks, just the same faint soot etch from the night before. You press your hand to the box's lid, half expecting another whisper. Nothing. It's quiet now, but not empty. You dress without thinking. Same boots, same coat, same slightly scorched scarf. You tuck the box beneath your arm, its weight comforting in a way you're not going to question just yet. Back in the shed, everything waits exactly as you left it. Except now, somehow, it feels like it's watching you back. You place the box carefully beside the crucible, set the parchment aside for now. You're focused on the disc, a perfect circle of dark, heavy metal, flecked with tiny gold spirals like frozen breath. It's cool to the touch, but warms rapidly in your palm, like it's calibrating to you. There's no inscription, no maker's mark, but when you set it into the coals beneath the crucible, the flame rises with a sharp, joyful hiss. Not threatening, more like a shout of recognition. You stare into the flames and think about what comes next. It's time to remember the theory that started all this. Not the formulae, not the grinding and mixing and weighing, but the philosopher's theory. The idea you wrote once on the inside cover of your second notebook, scrawled in tired handwriting and underlined twice. Gold is not a thing, it's a direction. You'd heard it in a documentary once, narrated in a calm British accent with slow pans of old manuscripts. At the time, you'd scoffed, but later, when a dream left you gasping with the sensation of glowing from within, you started to believe it. Gold isn't a substance. It's a state, an alignment, a remembering. You drop a single iron coin into the crucible with the disc. Nothing fancy, just something to test. The flame eats it instantly, and the crucible flares bright enough to blind you for a second. You shield your face, then peek through your fingers. The metal inside is gone. No residue, no ash, just a sphere of light hovering a centimetre above the crucible, perfectly still, perfectly silent, and then it speaks, but not like before. This time, the voice comes from inside your own mouth. Your lips move without permission. The sound is yours, but the words aren't. To purify is to forget is to become. The light fades. The crucible is empty. You step back, trembling. You grab a pen and write the phrase down before it escapes you. You add a note beside it. Voice override, self-recitation, possible trance state. But the truth is, you don't feel possessed. You feel tuned in, like a radio dial finally finding the right frequency. You open the parchment. The wax seal breaks with a pop, as if it's relieved. The paper inside is stiff with age but clearly legible. It's not instructions. It's not a confession. It's a map, but not geographic. It's a wheel. 12 symbols, like alchemical zodiac signs, spiraling inward. At the centre is a single word, aurum, gold. You recognise some of the symbols, copper, mercury, sulphur, but others are unfamiliar, or possibly invented. One looks like a lightning bolt wrapped in vines, another like an eye melting. At the edge of the parchment, faint handwriting reads, "Begin not at the outer rim, but from where you burned." You trace the ink, lips dry. Where you burned. You look at the ring on your hand. Well, the mark where your grandmother's old ring used to sit. You melted it down 2 winters ago for an experiment that went sideways. The metal never responded to heat again. It dulled instantly, like it had gone blind. You reach for your records from that night. You've kept them all. That page, too, has something strange now. A smear in the margin that wasn't there before. You tilt the paper and realise it's not ink. It's a faint gold shimmer embedded in the fibres. And next to it, one of the same symbols from the parchment map. You can more of the lightning vine. You trace it with your fingertip. It's warm. And that's when you remember a story you once laughed off in a footnote, something from an obscure Roman writer whose name nobody agrees on. He claimed that when gold awakens, it leaves behind signs of its path, visible only to those who already bear the mark. Historians still argue whether it was a poetic metaphor or a misinterpretation of ink corrosion. But looking at this warm shimmer under your lamp, you no longer think it was either. The gold is leaving messages. And you, apparently, are being taught to read them. You sit down, spread out your materials, the wheel map, the shimmered page, the box, the disc. You feel like a student on the first day of a very strange school. No chalkboard, just heat, memory and symbols that respond to your breath. You breathe slowly. Focus. The shed quiets. And then, without looking, you pick up the green-black stone and press it gently to the centre of the wheel. Parchment shudders. Not shakes, shudders. Like it flinched. Then it flattens, and the ink glows for a moment, revealing faint lines branching outward from the centre. 12 paths, each connected, each leading back to gold. You lift your hand. The glow fades. The wheel has changed. The lightning vine symbol is no longer static. It's now etched deeper, its lines clean and sharp. 1/12 of the wheel has been activated. You exhale slowly. "I'm in it now," you whisper. And the crucible, as if approving, emits a single soft chime. The next day, or whatever counts as day, when your hours are ruled by a whispering crucible and an ancient wheel of symbols, you wake with a start and a nosebleed. Not dramatic, just enough to stain your sleeve as you wipe it away. You don't panic. You've been expecting side effects. Blood is the least concerning possibility on your shortlist, which currently also includes spontaneous combustion and full possession by a molten demigod. You stumble into the shed with the strange, steady calm of someone who's past the point of reason and now just wants to see how weird things can get. The crucible is cold, the coal still, but the disc you left on the bench is humming faintly, vibrating in place like a phone on silent. Except this phone might call you back in Latin. You set the disc gently in your palm. It still glows faintly around the gold spirals, like a warning or an invitation. Probably both. And that's when you hear a sound behind you. A footstep. You freeze. No one ever visits the shed. You turn around slowly, heart thudding like a dropped hammer. At the threshold stands a figure, cloaked, hooded, still. No face visible, no sound. Just presence. For a moment, you genuinely consider grabbing the crucible and flinging it like a medieval frisbee. Instead, you whisper, "Who are you?" The figure raises one gloved hand, and from between the folds of the cloak, something small and heavy drops into your palm. A coin. Blackened, worn at the edges, but unmistakably gold. It gleams despite the soot, engraved with a symbol that doesn't match any currency you know. A sun with no rays. A perfect disc, dark at its centre. You turn it over. The other side bears a phrase in tiny etched letters. 3 truths for 1 transformation. You look up, but the figure is already walking away, vanishing between the trees beyond your yard. They move like smoke, no rustle, no snap of branches, just gone. You don't chase, because the moment the coin hit your skin, you felt something shift. Not physically, inside you. You stare at the coin. A phrase burns in your mind. 3 truths, 1 transformation. Is it a riddle? An exchange? You sit at the workbench, flipping the coin over and over. You're familiar with riddles. Alchemy is full of them. Sometimes they're literal. Sometimes they're literal. Sometimes they're maddeningly poetic. One Renaissance manuscript simply said, "Let the dragon devour itself," and scholars have spent centuries arguing whether that meant mercury, introspection, or just a really weird pet. But this feels more direct. 3 truths. You open your red notebook, the one for things that feel important but don't make immediate sense. You write 1. The metal speaks to. Memory can live in matter. 3. I am changing. There, 3 truths. Your truths. You whisper them aloud. Nothing happens. You whisper them again. The crucible flares, just once. A sharp spark of gold light, then stillness. The coin in your hand is warm now. You flip it over again. The phrase is gone, in its place. A new engraving. You may ask. You exhale. You lean over the crucible and whisper, "What is the next step?" No dramatic voice responds. But the crucible tilts, not literally, but visually, as if the world itself shifts and you're suddenly aware of an angle that wasn't there before. You follow the tilt, your eyes scanning the wall, and there it is. A new symbol has appeared beside the other 2. It looks like a tear falling upward. You approach it, press your hand to it, expecting cold. This time, it's hot. You wince, but don't pull away. A pulse travels through your arm, and then you see something. A room, dark, circular, lined with stone benches and metal instruments you don't recognize. At the center, a massive furnace. Above it, a lens, like an ancient telescope, pointing not at the stars but down into the flames. The vision flickers, then vanishes. You're back in your shed, sweating. The coin in your hand is gone. You check the floor. Nothing. Vanished or absorbed. You stagger to the chair and slump down, feeling your breath pull shallow. The visions are taking something from you. Not just energy. Clarity. You close your eyes and focus. You remember a passage from an obscure text by a 17th century Bohemian mystic named Valentinus Gerber. He wrote about black gold, not oil, but a hypothetical substance that existed between states. Neither metal nor ash. Not corrupt, not pure. His claim. Only the one who offers what cannot be taken shall reveal the gold that cannot be stolen. At the time, you thought he was being dramatic. Now you wonder. You dig through your notes until you find an old envelope, yellowed, frayed at the corners. Inside is a small lock of hair. Yours, cut years ago for a DNA experiment you never finished. You hold it over the crucible and let it fall in. The flames flare once, then, oddly, go silent. No hiss, no spark. The fire accepts the offering. And in the ash, something new remains. A ring. Simple, heavy, golden. But not forged, formed. As if the fire moulded it straight from memory. The band fits your finger perfectly. You laugh. Because of course it does, you whisper. Is this a gift? And the voice returns gentle, almost amused. No, a debt. You go still. What do I owe? But the crucible says no more. You sit in the dark for hours, the ring warm on your hand, the wall glowing with new symbols that weren't there before. You begin to draw them. The ring pulses gently each time your pencil touches paper, guiding you. And for the first time, you realize you're not following instructions, you're translating. Whatever this is, it's older than language. Older than gold. It doesn't just want transformation, it wants understanding, and it's using you to remember itself. You start seeing light where there isn't any. Begins subtly. A shimmer in the corner of your eye. A flicker on the surface of your tea. The glow of coals that haven't been lit. You blink, rub your eyes, squint. Nothing there until it is. Your eyesight has changed. Or perhaps your sight has changed. Objects leave trails now. Symbols appear in the weave of your curtains, in steam from the kettle, in the cracked tile of your sink. You hold your hands up to your face and see lines beneath your skin, like circuits, pulsing faint gold. You try to sleep. You really do. But the darkness won't stay still. Instead, it shifts. It moves with intention, like a stage curtain, always about to rise. And when you close your eyes, the world behind them looks more like firelight than void. You find yourself back in the shed every few hours, even if you didn't plan to go. You walk in like it's a second heartbeat. The crucible is never cold now. Sometimes it hums before you even reach it, as if it senses your approach. The green-black stone from the box now rests on your workbench like a patient pet. You've caught yourself speaking to it once or twice. You'd be embarrassed, but you're past that stage of the descent. One night, as you're sketching a new symbol that revealed itself in a raindrop, you feel a tremor in your left eye. Not pain, just pressure. Like something behind your vision is adjusting the lens. You stagger back, blinking rapidly. Your sight dims, just for a moment. But it's enough. You sit down hard, heart pounding. Then you laugh. It sounds hollow, cracked. You want more, don't you? You murmur. A price. The crucible doesn't answer. But your vision keeps changing. Not fading, transforming. You now see layers. You notice tiny fractures in metal you've never spotted before. Gold glows a little differently than everything else, even in complete darkness. You identify materials by their aura. Lead pulses slow, silver flashes sharp, tin fizzles like soda bubbles. You know things by looking, and yet your eyes are going dark, just a little each day. A faint shadow at the corners, a distortion like heat rising off asphalt, even indoors. The doctors would call it a visual migraine, but you haven't seen a doctor in years, and if you did, you doubt they'd know what to do with an eye that sees memory. You find an old pair of glasses you wore for fun once. You pop out the lenses and use the frames to hide your squinting. It makes you feel human again. Almost. In the journal, you begin a new page titled Symptoms of Gold-Wrought Transmutation. You more of these blurred peripheral vision. Light trails in low light. Symbolic overlays in natural textures. Recognition of metals by sight. Whispering dreams. Golden language, still undercoded. Ring warmth. Varies with emotional state. Soot marks replicating spiral fractal geometry. Crucible responses to non-verbal emotion. At the bottom of the page, in a burst of honesty, you add, I am afraid. You think about the old stories again, about the alchemist who was said to have turned lead to gold and then gouged out his own eyes to keep the knowledge safe. Most called it allegory. Some claimed it was punishment from God, but a rare few, fringe historians mostly, the kind that are banned from university forums, argued he didn't lose his sight. He gave it up. To complete the process. To see with something else. You wonder if you're next in that strange, secret lineage. The crucible burns brighter each night now. You don't even add fuel anymore. It feeds on intention. You can feel the fire shift depending on your mood. When you're hopeful, it dances high and white-hot. When you're tired, it curls low, blue as a sleeping star. And sometimes, when you're not touching it, it speaks. The whispers have changed. Less fragmented. Less mysterious. Now they teach. Like last night, when you asked aloud, why me? And it said, because you listened. You're learning that listening is the first alchemy. You jot that down too. You test things more boldly now. You melt metals in combinations no sane metallurgist would try. Bismuth and bone dust. Silver shavings with ground-up chalk from your childhood school desk. A sliver of gold leaf you found tucked inside the green stone. You're still not sure how it got there, combined with a fingernail clipping. You get results. Not gold. Changes. Sometimes the residue left behind glows for hours. Sometimes it whispers. Once it sang. Just one note. Long, hollow, beautiful. Like a flute made of regret. You don't try to repeat that one. Your hands are blistered now, in strange places. Not burned, just reshaped. The ring grows tighter on your finger, though you haven't gained weight. You think about taking it off, but every time you try, it pulses. Not painful, just firm, a reminder. You're already too far in, and still you melt. Still, you listen. You find a note in the margins of one of your older journals, something you forgot you wrote. Back when this was still a side project. If iron is the body, and fire the trial, then gold must be the soul. You stare at it for a long time. You underline it. Twice. That night you sit beside the furnace for hours, saying nothing. Just watching. You don't stir. You don't test. You simply let the fire burn. You wait. And when you finally close your eyes, you dream of something new. A corridor of golden mirrors. Each one showing a version of you. Some younger. Some older. Some blind. One with eyes that shine like suns. One with no eyes at all, and still, he's smiling. He steps forward. And whispers. Not blind, just focused. You wake up with tears on your cheeks. Your eyes can barely see the light through the shed window, but you've never felt more aware. You spend the next 3 days trying to figure out if you're dreaming all of this. You blink at walls, wave your hand in front of your face, scribble notes with trembling fingers, but everything remains. The symbols, the gold glow, the quiet fire, the crucible that hums when you enter the room like a cat too proud to purr outright. You sit across from it like an old friend. No goggles, no gloves. The rituals you once followed, temperature logs, stirring patterns, precise weighing, they're mostly habits now, not requirements. The crucible responds more to what you mean than what you do. Alchemy, you realize, isn't chemistry. It's consent. You give it your time, your sleep, your blood, your sight. It gives you transformation. One morning, you walk into the shed and find something unexpected. A book on your workbench, not in your handwriting, bound in cracked leather, sealed with a wax crest. You touch it and nearly flinch. It's cold, as if it's been waiting somewhere dark. You check the door, locked. No one came in. You check the floor, no footprints but yours. You break the wax seal. Inside, the pages are black with gold ink. Symbols that shimmer when tilted, sentences that change when read twice. You blink, trying to steady your breath. You flip to the inside cover, written in a hand that is not yours, but familiar. To the one who can still see, I write this while my sight fades. You are behind me, and ahead. This book returns to its reader. You read it 3 times. Then you laugh. It's either prophecy, time loop paradox, or schizophrenia. Honestly, any of the 3 are fine at this point. The first page contains a drawing, a diagram of a crucible flanked by symbols from the wheel. But the crucible in this sketch is alive. Its base spirals into roots. Its mouth opens like an eye. It's titled, The Mouth of Becoming. You whisper the words aloud. The crucible across the room glows faintly. You flip to the next page. There's a single phrase, do not feed it silver on the 3rd night. You glance over at your logbook. Tonight is the 3rd night since the coin. You close the book gently. This isn't a manual, it's a warning. You flip forward, scanning. The pages blur a little. You can still make out words, but your vision swims slightly. You rub your eyes and realize the blur isn't just weakness, it's resistance. This book only lets you read what you're ready for. You whisper, then what am I ready for? And the crucible says, not in words, but with movement. The fire rises but doesn't consume. The smoke spirals not upward but outward, curling into patterns mid-air. You recognize one of them, a symbol from the parchment wheel, the 7th glyph. You haven't unlocked it yet, until now. The air folds around you, not literally, but perceptually, like stepping into a memory you didn't have until this moment. You smell sand, ash, iron. You blink, and suddenly you're not in the shed. You're standing in a vast underground chamber, walls glinting with metal veins, a river of molten gold flowing through a cut channel. Hooded figures move around massive gears, stirring enormous vats of ore, and one turns to look at you. Their face is yours, older, wrinkled, smiling. You try to speak, but they raise a hand, and the chamber folds in on itself like paper burning backward. You wake up, back in the shed. Your hands are shaking. The ring on your finger is now warm again, almost hot. You pull it off without thinking, and immediately collapse to your knees. A blinding white pain flashes across your eyes. You scramble to shove the ring back on. The pain stops. Your breath comes in ragged pulls. You wipe your face. Your fingers come away wet with tears, and something else. Gold dust. You stare at it, speechless. It shimmers, then fades. Absorbed. Gone. You laugh. It's quiet hoarse. Okay, you whisper. We're really doing this. You remember a theory you once saw mentioned in a badly translated alchemical text, supposedly found in Alexandria. A theory that gold is not a metal, but a frequency. A vibration so pure that anything tuned to it can become it. Historians still argue whether the text was authentic or a modern forgery. It was smuggled out by someone who swore they saw liquid light trapped in an obsidian bowl. Most dismissed it as fiction. But here now, staring at the whispering crucible and the self-writing book, you're not so sure. You write the phrase on a fresh page in your notebook. Frequency of gold equals state of perfect memory. Then beneath it, am I remembering something I never lived? You look up. The book's pages flutter on their own. They land on a passage written in clean, slanted script. Some metals resist change, others long for it. Gold remembers, iron forgets. You are between. You run your hand over the words. The page is warm. Outside, the sun is setting, though you didn't notice it rise. You've stopped keeping time in hours. You now track the passage of days by what speaks to you. That night, you light no fire. The crucible burns anyway. Inside it, a tiny shape floats in the glow, spinning slowly. You lean in and see it's a coin, not the same one the cloaked visitor gave you. This one bears your face. You don't touch the coin. You know better by now. It spins slowly in the crucible, hovering just above the glowing embers. Impossibly whole, impossibly stable. Your face on one side, eyes wide open. On the reverse, a spiral, familiar and unfinished, as if it's still being written. You lean in, close enough to feel heat press against your skin, but the coin doesn't waver. It's not floating on air or fire. It's floating on intention, you whisper. Why me? You fire answers not with words, but a low, humming note. You feel it more than hear it, a vibration deep in your spine, like the world itself just agreed with you on something fundamental. Then the shed goes quiet. Not just quiet. Hollow, like all the sound has been drawn out, sealed behind invisible glass. You reach out on instinct, because no part of this feels like a hallucination anymore, and the moment your fingers cross into the crucible's glow, you feel your body thrum like struck metal. You're in tune. You don't know what that means yet, but it's the only phrase your brain can wrap around this sensation. It's like you've stopped being a thing that acts upon the metal and started becoming part of it. The crucible recognizes you, respects you, maybe even needs you. You draw your hand back and sit down hard on the floor, knees shaking. The ring on your finger pulses softly, keeping time with something older than any calendar. That's when the crucible begins to hum back. At first it's just a tremble, a resonant thrum that runs through the bricks beneath your feet. Then the air begins to shimmer, not with heat, but with sound made visible. You see ripples like you've dropped pebbles into the atmosphere. You recognize the rhythm. It's the same cadence you tapped as a child when you were anxious. On desks. On windowsills. On your own collarbone. You forgot that about yourself. But apparently, the metal didn't. The hum deepens, grows more complex, and then the crucible sings. No, really sings. A single harmonic tone, eerily human. A sound that isn't exactly beautiful, but true. The kind of tone you feel in your ribs before your ears. It lasts maybe 7 seconds. Then silence. Then, from the mouth of the crucible, smoke rises, not black, not grey, but golden. And within it, a shape. A face. Not yours. Not anyone you recognize. The features shift, reform, spiral, then fade. You exhale. You realize you've been holding your breath the whole time. The crucible cools slightly. The coin drops into the coals without a sound. You leave it there. You're learning. You go to your journal and record everything. Every vibration, every shade of light, every shape in the smoke. And when you're done, you write. The metal remembers more about me than I do. And then, almost as an afterthought, how far back does this go? That night, you don't sleep in your bed. You drag a pillow into the shed, set it on the stone floor, and lay there beside the crucible. It glows softly beside you, as if it too is trying to fall asleep. You dream. But this time, the dream isn't symbolic. It's practical. You're standing over blueprints, massive diagrams scrawled in charcoal on temple stone, the plans for a furnace. Not one you've seen before. This one is wide, shaped like a blooming flower, with vents that resemble ribs and a platform shaped like a tongue, the mouth of becoming. The phrase echoes through your mind again. You wake up at dawn with soot on your fingers. You never touched anything. Did you? You get up and walk to the far corner of the shed, where old bricks and rusted parts pile up in chaotic shame. You dig through them, moving with instinct, not thought. And there it is. A component you drew in the dream. A circular plate with a curved vent edge. You don't remember salvaging it. You don't remember ever seeing it, but you have it. You carry it to the bench, and the crucible hums in approval. You are building something now, not melting, not refining, creating. You remember another obscure tidbit, something from a footnote in a translation of a lost Egyptian alchemical treatise. It spoke of furnaces that responded to voice, to intention, of metals that chose the moment they changed. Historians still argue whether the source was real or a medieval hoax invented to sell early lab equipment. But your furnace is listening. You begin construction that day. The crucible remains active, watching like a silent mentor. You disassemble parts of the old kiln. You shape new walls with clay from the river, reinforced with shards of broken glass and powdered quartz. The structure takes form, flower-shaped, throat-like, and comfortably anatomical. You don't question the shape. It came from the dream came from the smoke came from the crucible knows. You lay the coin, your coin, into the heart of the furnace. It sits in the centre, unmoving, waiting. As the last stone falls into place, the air in the shed shifts, heavier, thicker, like a storm about to break. And then you hear it, not a whisper, not a hum, but laughter, not mocking, not cruel, just amused. Old, joyful. The sound rolls through the space like thunder, made gentle. You smile. Hello again, you whisper. The laughter fades, and the new furnace opens its first breath. You name the new furnace the mouth. It feels appropriate, less poetic than it sounds. Functional, really, because it breathes. Not literally, of course, no bellows or vents, but it inhales your attention, your thoughts, your fear, and then it speaks back, not in words, in images. The first time it happens, you're just sitting beside it, hand resting near the edge, thinking nothing at all, too tired to even pretend. You've been working non-stop. The symbols on your arms have started to appear unprompted, faint tracings. They vanish when you touch them, but return when you sleep. Your sight is nearly useless now in daylight. Blurs, halos, colours you know shouldn't exist edging everything. You've learned to navigate by temperature, by feel, by sound. The furnace has made you blind to the ordinary. But you're starting to see in new ways. The image appears not in the fire, but on the wall behind it, casting shadow and light, like some invisible slide projector, is beaming a reel across your shed. A city rises there, towering and strange, made of metal and sand, its streets shaped like sigils. And in the sky, a golden sun with no light. You gasp. Doesn't fade. It wavers, as if waiting for you to respond. You reach forward without thinking. Your fingers pass through the furnace's heat. It doesn't burn, and the vision shifts. You're in the city now, walking barefoot on metal cobblestones. The buildings hum. You hear people, but you see no one. The hum becomes voices, not speaking, but remembering. Whispers in every direction. We gave it our eyes. We gave it our names. We gave it our gold, and it gave us back ourselves. Then the sky opens. A deluge of golden dust falls, not heavy, not wet, just shimmering memory, raining like it forgot how to float. You inhale and wake. You're back in the shed, on the floor. You've been unconscious for less than a minute. The furnace purrs softly beside you. You sit up, every nerve tingling, every thought laced with awe. You understand now. The furnace doesn't show you what's possible. It shows you what's remembered. You scramble for your notebook, writing down every detail of the vision, every curve of the city, every whispered phrase, every symbol that glowed beneath your bare feet. And beside it, in the margin, a question. Whose memories are these? Later, you melt a coin, an ordinary one, a copper penny from your childhood. One of those wheat-back designs your grandfather used to hoard. You slide it into the mouth centre. The flame doesn't react right away, but the air does. Temperature drops. Your breath fogs, and the furnace breathes in. Not fire, not heat, emotion. You feel it. The taste of copper, the scrape of asphalt under shoes, the sunlight on cracked playgrounds. Your grandfather's voice, rough with age, saying, "Keep it, might be lucky." You forget your name for a moment. Not because it's gone, but because it seems irrelevant compared to this flood of lived experience returning through metal. The coin glows white. then black, then nothing, gone. But something remains, a feeling, as if the memory didn't vanish, it was absorbed. The furnace, you realize, doesn't just burn, it keeps. And when it exhales again, the air is warm, comforting, the way your grandfather's coat smelled after a day in the garden. You cry, not from grief, from recognition. This is what the ancient texts meant when they spoke of transmutation of the soul. They weren't just trying to turn base metals into gold, they were trying to turn experience into permanence, to make the fleeting eternal. You sit for hours, feeding the mouth little things. A button, a broken pencil, a tooth from when you were 10, still in a dusty envelope. Each one yields a new emotion, a new vision, a new lesson. But it's not random. You see patterns forming, symbols overlapping, a sequence, a language. You realize the furnace isn't just accepting memory, it's teaching you how to read it. And it's accelerating. Your eyes may be fading, but your understanding sharpens. You see meaning in light fractures, you feel time in temperature. You understand objects not as things, but as condensed moments. You remember that fringe paper you once read, back when you still doubted everything, that claimed objects retain a resonance of the experiences they're part of. Discredited instantly, of course. Something about the author being banned from every major academic conference after claiming he heard a spoon mourn. Historians still argue whether he was insane or just ahead of his time. You now suspect neither. You've started writing in a new notebook. This one bound in thin sheets of copper using ink laced with ground pyrite. You call it the Chronicle of the Unmade, page 1. What the fire returns is not gold, but clarity, and beneath it. To become alchemist is to become witness. You're not chasing gold anymore, you're receiving it. That night, the furnace sings again. This time, it doesn't stop. It hums through your dreams. And in your sleep, you see the crucible's mouth open wider, revealing stairs inside the fire. Stairs that descend. You ask the fire what's below, and it whispers, "You ones who came before." You wake before dawn with the sound of the furnace's hum still trailing through your ears, like smoke from a blown-out candle. The sound doesn't stop when you sit up. It follows you, threads its way into your bones. It's no longer a noise, it's a presence. Your furnace is quiet when you enter the shed, but the heat greets you like a breath from something just waking up. The golden glow within the mouth is low and still, pulsing faintly. You know better now than to rush it. You sit in the corner, notebook in hand, not writing, just listening. You've become fluent in its silences. Every pause, every hush, every warm gust of heat now means something. It's like decoding an old friend's sighs, or a lover's glances, long after words have been rendered unnecessary. And that's when he speaks, not the furnace. A voice from the shadows behind you, quiet, hoarse. You've gone too far. You don't jump. Not really. You just close the notebook slowly and stand. There in the doorway stands a man, hooded, but not cloaked like the one before. No theatrics, just exhaustion, radiating off him like cold sweat. His hair is white, but not with age, with exposure. His eyes are closed, yet he turns his head like he sees you anyway. You know who he is. You've read about him. He's the one the town spoke of before they forgot. The man who once lived where you live now, who vanished before you arrived. They said he'd gone to the mountains, or gone mad, or simply gone. But here he is. You ask quietly, "Are you the alchemist?" Chuckles once. "No, I was an apprentice. I just didn't realize I was the only one left." You glance back at the furnace. Doesn't move. "I came to warn you," he says, stepping closer now, his cane clicking softly on the stone. "It's beautiful, isn't it? The fire, the memory, the sound it makes when it finally speaks." You nod slowly. He opens his eyes. And you understand why he's blind, not by damage, not from age, but because the fire took what it needed. His irises shimmer faint gold, dead centers of old light. "You think you're learning," he says, "but the truth is, it's using you. It always does." You shake your head. It remembers. It teaches. It consumes. His voice sharpens, not cruel, just clear, like the ring of tempered glass. "I built one too," he says. "Not as refined as yours. I didn't have the dreams. I didn't listen the way you did. but it still spoke to me. You ask him, "What did it ask of you?" He smiles, sadly. "Everything." You gesture to your eyes. "It's already taking mine." "Of course it is. That's the exchange. Sight for insight." You think that's new. That's older than Babylon. You don't argue, because you know he's right. You ask him the question that's been hovering at the edge of your mind for weeks now. What's at the bottom? He doesn't pretend not to understand. He just tilts his head slightly, as if trying to recall something heavy. "Below the stairs," he says. "A mirror." You frown. A mirror that doesn't show your face. It shows what the fire sees when it looks at you. You stare at him. "And what does it see?" He says, softly. "Your intention." You feel something crack in your chest. He reaches into his coat pocket, pulls out something small, wrapped in linen, tied with copper thread. He offers it to you. You hesitate. Then take it. Inside, a piece of charcoal, a single gold flake, and a broken compass. "I used these," he says. "Once. Before I understood the direction was inward." You nod. He turns to go, then pauses. "I came back because I heard the furnace singing again. It only does that when someone's close." "To what?" He doesn't answer. He just says, "You'll have to decide if seeing in gold is worth going blind." And then he's gone. No drama. No vanishing act. Just a man walking away with empty eyes, who once stood where you're standing now. You sit down slowly. The furnace warms. You whisper, "Did you show him the same things?" And for the first time, the crucible answers in your own voice. No, he wasn't listening. You light a match and feed the mouth. It flares. Not violently, just awake. You drop in the broken compass, and the gold flake, and the charcoal, and the furnace sings, and so do you. The fire doesn't blind this time. It opens. Inside the glow, for just a second, you see the mirror. It doesn't show your face. It shows you, standing at a table, surrounded by children, showing them how to stir the crucible. Your eyes are gone, but your hands move with grace. The children listen, wide-eyed. The fire trusts you. And that's the moment you understand. This was never about gold. It was about passing on what cannot be kept. You don't go inside the house that night. You stay in the shed, the mouth glowing steadily beside you like an old friend's lamp left burning until you fall asleep. But sleep doesn't come. Not really. You drift in and out, never sinking fully, floating somewhere between dream and vigil. Around midnight, the air shifts. You've learned to notice it. How the pressure in the room rearranges itself before something important happens. Like the universe inhales, waiting for you to exhale. You rise without effort. The furnace is silent now, not dormant, watching, waiting. You press your hand to the stone lip of the mouth, and this time there is no heat, only gravity. Downward. You blink. Beneath your palm, where there should be solid stone, the surface yields. You press harder. It depresses like soft clay. Then the mouth opens. Not metaphorically. The floor below the crucible parts, with a faint grinding sound that vibrates in your teeth. The brickwork splits along invisible seams. A circular stairway reveals itself. No torchlight, no invitation. Just shadow, curling downward into nothing. You hesitate for 3 breaths, then step down. The air is cool, cooler than it should be beneath an ever-burning furnace. Each step echoes, not loudly, but deeply, like your bones are absorbing the sound instead of the walls. The staircase coils tighter the farther you go. You lose sense of how long you've been descending. Minutes? Hours? Years? It doesn't matter. Eventually, you reach the bottom. There is no door, no threshold, just an open chamber. You step forward into a space that should not fit beneath your shed. It's vast, cavernous. The walls gleam, not from any light, but from the memories clinging to them like condensation. You see images playing in faint flickers. A girl crying beside a broken gold locket. A man staring at the sun with empty sockets. An ancient priest carving symbols into molten wax with his teeth. All of them reaching, melting, asking. In the centre of the chamber sits the mirror, the one the old man warned you about. It's not made of glass. It's liquid. Gold, but not shiny, soft like honey that never cooled. You approach it slowly. The ring on your finger pulses faster now. It's hot, almost unbearable. But you don't remove it. You can't. You kneel in front of the mirror, and you look. At first, you see nothing. Then your reflection appears, but not as you are, as you could be. Younger, sharper, eyes bright, body unscarred. Confident, sure. A version of you untouched by failure, by doubt, by darkness. You stare, and the reflection smiles. Then it begins to melt. Not violently, just unravels. Hair first, then skin, then the bones beneath, until all that's left is light. And from within that light, gold, not a reflection anymore. A flame, alive, conscious. It reaches out from the mirror, not physically, through you. And you hear a voice you've never heard before, yet always known. You asked to become. Now, unmake. You blink. Your hands are glowing. Faint at first, then bright. Your skin hums, threads of gold running through every vein. You feel your heartbeat slow, not from weakness, but from clarity. The ring cracks, splits, falls off. The heat vanishes. You breathe in, and the mirror ripples. You see every mistake you ever made, every person you failed to call, every fire you stoked for the wrong reason. And then you see every version of you who chose differently. They smile too. None of them reached the gold, but they all looked. They all asked. Then fades. You're left kneeling in a room that no longer hums, just silence. But it's not empty, it's full of endings you can feel in your chest, of a choice now hanging in the stillness. You whisper, "Do I go back?" The air does not answer. You turn toward the stairs. They're gone. Instead, there is a single platform of stone rising slowly from the floor, glowing at its centre. On it, the crucible. It has followed you, or perhaps it was always here. Its fire is small now, contained, controlled. You understand. This is the final melt, not of metal, of you. You don't hesitate. You remove your coat, your shirt, your gloves. You stand before the crucible bare-handed, sight flickering. The world around you begins to fade, outlines softening, colours draining. Just one glow remains. You whisper, "I am ready." And the crucible breathes you in, not as flesh, not as soul, but as memory. You do not burn. You transform. You feel your body collapse inward. No pain, just compression. Like folding paper into a shape it was always meant to become. Your thoughts stay intact. Your sense of self distills into something more focused, more golden. Your eyes go dark, not with blindness, with light too pure to see. And the crucible seals shut. Its fire fades. And above, in the shed, the furnace goes still. The mouth closes, and the villagers never see you again. Days pass. Maybe weeks. Above the shed, the town settles back into its sleepy rhythm. No one knocks on your door. No one asks where you've gone. They whisper about the smoke that stopped too suddenly, about the glow that no longer spills under your door at midnight. Some say they're relieved. Others pretend they don't notice. But children dare each other to creep closer to your fence. None of them touch the gate. They say the house is empty, but the crucible is not. It remains where you left it, cold on the surface, but still holding the soft warmth of something recently alive. There's no fire, no humming, just that strange hush, as if the walls remember the echoes you once made. One morning, someone enters. A young girl, maybe 13, maybe 15, it's hard to say any more. She walks barefoot, as if she instinctively understands that shoes will only make noise that doesn't belong. Her hands are smudged with ink. Her pockets are full of scraps, chalk, buttons, a rusted key. She pauses at the threshold. The furnace does not hum, but it does notice. She steps inside. The room smells of ash and parchment, of the kind of memory that doesn't fade even after it's been scrubbed. On the workbench lies a notebook, the copper-bound one. It wasn't there yesterday. She touches it. The page opens to the middle, a diagram she doesn't understand yet, a spiral coiled around a circle, and below it just one sentence. Ask. She smiles. The furnace hums. Little, not much. You quite void enough. She finds the crucible and touches it with a single fingertip. She doesn't flinch. She tilts her head like she's listening to music no one else hears. Then she begins to clear the workbench. You don't need to be there for this. You've already become part of the room. Not as smoke, not as ashes, but as impression, in the heat that lingers in the crucible's base, in the symbols that glow faintly when the moon is full, in the notebooks that fill in their own margins, just a little, when someone asks the right question. You never became gold. Not really. Because you were never trying to. You were becoming the thing that listens to gold. The mouth does not open again for many years, until one day it whispers. And this time it says a name that isn't yours, but whoever hears it already understands the rules. 3 truths. 1 transformation. A furnace that waits. A crucible that remembers. And a light too bright to see. So now, listener, the fire's gone quiet. The crucible is cold, and the symbols have dimmed. The whispers have curled back into the walls like steam into winter air. The work is done, for now. You've walked with him, the alchemist who melted his nights into metal, who traded his sight for vision, who chased gold so long he became memory. You've seen what he saw, cities made of symbols, mirrors that remember, and furnaces that hum back when spoken to. Maybe you've even felt it in your chest, that quiet gravity, that impossible promise. And whether he vanished, ascended, or simply stepped too far into the fire, well, some answers are meant to stay warm and unsaid. But here's what lingers. The idea that maybe transformation doesn't mean becoming something else, but becoming entirely yourself. No polishing, no masks. Just you, distilled, golden and clear. So breathe now. Let your chest rise, slow and easy. Let your limbs soften, sinking gently into your mattress, your pillow, your night. There's no crucible here, no furnace. Just the gentle hush of the world settling down around you. Let your thoughts drift, slowly, like gold dust falling in a sunbeam. Let them scatter, then fade. Because tonight, you don't need to chase anything. You've already become part of the story. And that's enough.